Good evening and welcome to the Town of Dayton Board of Selectmen regular scheduled meeting for Wednesday, October 12, 2022 at 6 p.m. It is a hybrid meeting via Zoom and in person at Old Town Hall. The Zoom meeting information ID is 837-0923-9685. Passcode 375590. To phone login 1-309-205-3325. Public input may be provided using the following methods: by contacting the office at Board of Selectmen at Dayton-ma.gov prior to the meeting to provide input, or via Zoom call-in at the number provided above. We have continued play on Dayton Channel 9 and on YouTube at www.youtube.com/Town of Dayton. This meeting is being recorded. The listing of matters are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Before we begin, I would like to mention that Selectman Peter Karen is ill and will not be in attendance this evening. At this point, Mr. Chico?
Present.
Chairman Leonard Hull is also present. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag and followed by a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Since our last meeting, 2 members of the Dayton community have passed. Jillian B. Corsi of Dayton died peacefully at her home after a long illness on Friday, September 30th, 2022. She was the daughter of Bethany Prescott Collins of Dayton and the late William Collins. Jillian graduated from Dayton Rehoboth Regional High School in 1992. In the last 15 years of her work experience, she was a human resource worker for Pepsi Bottling Company in Taunton. Also passing was Frances McDonald. Frances Croft McDonald, 90, passed away on September 22nd, 2022. Born and raised in Fall River, she was the mother of Patricia McDonald, Frances McDonald, Tim McDonald, Chris McDonald, Margaret St. Hours, and Colleen McDonald were also members of her family. She was a graduate of Sacred Heart Academy and earned her degree at Southeastern SMU, Southeastern Massachusetts University. She was also the former executive director of the Alcoholism Council of Greater Fall River. I ask for a moment of silence for both these people. Thank you. First on the agenda, Al Galvin from National Grid. I don't see him on Zoom.
So there is a telephone number on Zoom, Mr. Chairman, and I believe that is Mr. Galvin, or a representative from National Grid, who is here for the poll hearing.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Galvin. Can you hear us?
I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Oh, sorry, I said unmute. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. My understanding is that you, in addition to Verizon, have a plan to relocate some poles on Main Street. Is that correct?
Yes, there are. Yes, not sure if it's the engineer from Control to have project is online as well. This group designed the job, but yes, they recently walked out the area with representatives of the town and operations and shifted the pole line back to the inside of the sidewalk. Basically a new sidewalk project that's happening. So several poles are being relocated back off the street on the opposite side of the sidewalk to allow for, clearance and room there.
My understanding is relocating 19 poles.
Right, yes.
Do you have any questions, Mr.
Well, I do. The last time we had this before us, our ADA coordinator was here, Jonathan Gale, and he was concerned about the intersections, if there's going to be anything that's going to interfere with the, where the poles are, and for people using wheelchairs around the intersections. Right now, we're talking about Elm Street. I'm not sure if there's any other intersection at this point, but it's Elm Street.
This wouldn't go all the way down to Elm Street. It would go almost to Elm Street to
Okay,
around
so
the
it's not-
cemetery right
It's not that
before.
corner. Okay, thank you. You did mention that earlier, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I have no other questions.
Was Mr. Gale involved in the
Yes.
walkthrough at this section of Maine?
Yes, he was, and we had a follow-up. The highway superintendent represents from National Grid, like an On Point, who is a consultant for National Grid. We did have a call actually yesterday morning with ADA coordinator Gail as well, and everyone's on the same page and on board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is it necessary we take a vote, or
Yes, I would recommend the approval of the petition, Mr. Chairman. As actually laid out and presented in your packet before you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the relocation of 15 JO poles on Main Street as presented on the schematic that was given.
The 19?
It says 15 in the agenda.
oh, it does say 15 on the agenda, but it says 19 on this agreement.
I'll amend my motion if it's supposed to be 19. I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the relocation of 19 JO poles on Main Street as presented on the schematic that was given to us.
I will step down as chairman to second that motion. Mr. Pacheco?
Yes, aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. The motion passes and the petition is accepted. Next on the agenda, Sister Marie William Lapointe. Good evening.
Right up there, sister.
Sister, first of all, I want to wish you a happy birthday on this
Thank you.
90th
Thank you.
birthday. I also would like to thank you for your service to the community especially, and to the people of your church. Dayton is a community of great compassion and a big heart. And having people who have dedicated, how many years have you been a member of the sisterhood?
67.
67 years.
Yes.
That's incredible. I want to thank you
Thank you.
for serving
It's my pleasure.
Dayton. Mr. Pacheco?
Yeah, I met you a couple of years ago with Mrs. Goulart and my wife when we had a presentation for another member of the sisterhood. You have a great place there, by the way. But I want to thank you again for all the work that you've done for the community, for the homeless and other people that you've served. So congratulations.
Thank you.
We have a certificate of recognition. Whereas Sister Marie William Lapointe was born in Fall River, Massachusetts on September 8, 1932, to parents Marie and William Lapointe, being the fourth of 6 children growing up on Brownwell Street. And whereas Sister Marie William Lapointe attended St. Matthew's School for elementary school, the Dominican Academy for high school, St. Anne's Hospital School of Nursing as a registered nurse, and the University of Maryland, a Bachelor of Arts. And whereas Sister Marie William Lapointe was influenced by the sisters nurses at St. Anne's Hospital, and in 1952 decided to join the Dominican Sisters of the Presentation, at which point she went to novitiate in France for 2 years before going back to St. Anne's Hospital. And whereas Sister Marie William Lapointe returned to France to work at the Civic Hospital in Sens, eventually going to Tours, France, where the order was located. 4 sisters were then sent to the French colony of Upper Volta, now Burkina Faso, where she worked for 15 years. And whereas Sister Marie William Lapointe went to Rome to work and study, after which she came back to the United States to study interpretation of French into English at Georgetown University. She was the interpreter-translator at the international meetings for the congregation for 30 years while being assigned to Washington, D.C., where she was placed in charge of the House of Studies and Residency for women students in Northeast Washington. And whereas Sister William Lapointe worked in Washington, D.C. for 18 years, making monthly trips to Dayton as a counselor to the provincial. And whereas Sister Marie William Lapointe settled in Dayton in 2010, where she is in charge of the Dayton Community of Sisters, I believe located on Elm Street in Dayton. Whereas Sister Marie William Lapointe has served for 67 years, and now we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, do hereby recognize and thank Sister Marie William Lapointe for dedicated service to our community. In witness whereof we unto set our hands and cause the great seal of the Town of Dayton to be affixed on this 12th day of October, 2022. The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton. Leonard E. Hull, Chairman. Peter D. Karen, Clerk. Kenneth J. Pacheco, Member. Again, thank you for all that you have done.
This is a Kodak moment, so if we can come up here, Mrs. Gould, I want you to be part of that picture too.
A rose between the thorns.
You were saying it's in 1951? What's the one 51
Yes, go ahead.
I do want to say a few words, if I may. I've seen, as you have heard, I've seen many countries and many cities, and finally, I'm at my last stop in Dayton, and I must say, it's one of the best I've ever had. And I thank everyone who has helped us, the sisters over in the south end of this town, and I've worked with many of the members of the various committees and the various, I call them, heads of departments. That's what I mean. And we have been blessed by the people in charge of this town, and we really, really appreciate it. What I do want to say is that everyone is welcome to come to our home. Everyone. We have a beautiful chapel. Everyone is welcome. Anyone in Dayton may come. Just ring that doorbell. If no one answers, walk in. It's open. We have, I must say that every day at evening, we have what we sing psalms, and we pray for all the people of Dayton. And if anyone has special requests, we have a book at the entrance. They write their requests, and we will pray specially for them. And thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that the Dominican Sisters located in Dayton represent the North American headquarters in Honduras, Central America. It's nice to think that a little town like Dayton has a, if you will, international headquarters for this group. And I will also say, although they're up there on the hill at 3012 Elm Street, they participate in town events, and they're always interested.
Oh, yes.
And I had to give regular reports on the Berkeley-Dayton Bridge when it was under construction.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sister.
Next on the agenda, Police Chief Sean Cronin for a presentation on the status of Police Department vehicle fleet. The update, just so the public will know, tomorrow evening, there will be several departments making requests that will be voted on at the fall town meeting in November. And as a result of that, some of the departments will be coming tonight, definitely tomorrow, to advocate for their needs. And I believe Mr. Cronin this evening is here to do just that.
Good evening, everybody. As you can see, our fleet is definitely aging. Now, typically over the years, historically, we've done a really, really good job of maintaining our cars because we typically would get one per year. The challenge that we've run into since COVID is parts. One car in particular up there, 573, we waited, we just got it back 3 weeks ago, and it had been down since November of 21. So parts are an issue. Cars themselves are an issue. The vehicle that we ordered last special town meeting is still not in. So we're waiting on that. I mean, anybody who's bought a new car or looked at new cars knows that it's a challenge. Unfortunately, with the newer Explorers, we've been running into some water pump issues. That's not a cheap fix. It's like anything else. It's maintenance. It's just the cost of living now. It's becoming a real challenge, especially for these frontline cars. Everything you see up there, with the exception of the admin cars, are running almost 24 hours a day. So, as the chief has said in the past, it's not necessarily the mileage, but it's the hours. These cars are always running. So, we're in real need for another car, because the reality is we order it today, we're probably not seeing it until next August. So time is of the essence when it comes to getting new cars in.
Thank you. Mr. Chico, any questions?
I have no questions. I reviewed this beforehand.
I as well. I'm planning on supporting this request
Thank
tomorrow
you.
evening. Obviously, in the end, the voters will have the final say.
Yeah, we need them. We need to get to you.
So,
Are there any questions?
so yeah, I just have one, Chief. Just really to clarify, you mentioned the new and funded cruiser that we currently have ordered.
Yes.
Like when we do take a rival, like for that, will there be one vehicle in the current fleet that, at that point, the department will look at to make surplus, or how does the matrix work here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it depends on what we have for vehicles. In this case, in this time, this round, 572 would be, I guess, lack of a better term, demoted to being a detail car only. Right now, our reserve officers will use that on an interim basis, but we would try to keep that for details, especially with the projects that are going on in town, and having the vehicle for site deterrence for motorists. So typically, yeah, if it was, again, because of the good maintenance program And I have to give Detective Richards credit because he does all of that. He's on top of that daily with Mark down at the garage. Those guys are great. Tommy, thank you because you facilitate that, so we do appreciate that. But right now, everything that we have here is usable to its extent. 572, again, like I said, would be demoted to the detail usage.
Much appreciated. I see no further questions. We will be voting on this tomorrow evening, correct?
Yes.
We'll be giving our recommendations tomorrow evening, correct?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes.
There'll be no vote needed this evening.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Maderas is unable to be with us this evening. With that being said, we will move into public input. And before we begin public input, I'd like to explain that, one, public input will be limited to 5 minutes. Any public employee who has an item that pertains to day-to-day operations should contact Mr. Mullen to schedule an appointment with him or to ask to be placed on the agenda. In regards to the public, we expect good decorum, and we ask that you show respect for the people if you have a concern, if you will. We also want people to understand that if it's a public employee that's being questioned, they have a right to be present. So I may have to ask that discussion end until that person can be present to have a meeting on an issue. With that being said, is there any public input? Mrs. Goulart, yes.
This morning was a MMA meeting, Policy Committee on Energy and the Environment. And I haven't been giving you regular updates because we haven't had, let's say, hot button topics. But today, we worked on legislation that we're planning to support. So one deals with getting clarification on stormwater fees. Who can be charged, a range of what can be charged, how the money can be spent. In other words, in the past, it's always been if you impose a stormwater fee on a developer, it has to go to stormwater programs. But all water programs, whether it's drinking water, wastewater, or stormwater, have costs affiliated. Of course, our water, drinking water, they're handled through districts, but there have been some fuzzy areas about if you impose it, what do you do with it? And so this legislation is supposed to help clarify and give more direction to towns and cities. A number of communities have these fees, and I know we talked about it here. Dayton has not imposed them, and we've had discussions. So anyhow, we're supporting clarification, if that's in this new bill, on give us some direction about the kind of things this money can be spent on. And then they mentioned that this year will be the first live annual meeting and trade show. In January, it's the third Friday, Saturday, I think it's 2021. And the registration is now open. I know Mr. Pacheco's gone in the past, so if you look at it, it's always been worth the effort to go. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, the Stormwater Committee will be at the Lions Arts Festival, and we will be giving out educational information. And also, the tree lighting ceremony, like last year, the Stormwater Committee will be giving out calendars for the 2023 year, and I just saw them. They came in recently, and they're all pictures of national parks, a whole new set. So we'll be doing that at the two events coming up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Is there any other? Mr. Galucci, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Hall. Tom Galucci, 2086 Palmer Street. I just wanted to say, and good evening, Mr. Chico, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that we're in favor of the police getting their cruiser. This is coming from the majority of the Republican Town Committee. We've discussed it at some length and feel that, you know, it's a public safety issue as well as a officer safety issue. So they're definitely going to need that new cruiser. And what Chief Cronin was speaking about in regard to parts and supply chain issues and so forth, we've seen a lot of that over the last 2 years. And some of those parts are unavailable or barely available. I might have some sources. I'll talk to Chief Cronin. But, you know, that's a real hard issue. And so for, I think, the majority of the RTC, I'd like to say that we're much in favor of them getting a new cruiser. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Galucci, I really appreciate the input. You know, we make decisions, and we try to make them not in a vacuum, so it's good to have public input where the citizens express their views on issues, especially when it comes to money. So thank you very much.
I do have Mr. Gale raise his hand.
Good evening, Mr. Gale.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I literally just logged in, I was late. I'm assuming from what I just heard, this is the public input section?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone in the town, from Kevin Smith Jr. and Parks and Rec and his team to all members of the Board of Selectmen, to a town administrator, to highway department, not just Tom Ferry, but all of the guys who were there with all of their equipment, and to everyone who has supported the putting together, design, and grand opening of the first playground in our town that is fully accessible for all of our residents. I think it's a big accomplishment. I have a funny feeling that this playground is going to get an enormous amount of use, maybe even more than some of the other playgrounds in the area have in the past because of everything it has to offer. But I really just wanted to give a shout out to everybody for understanding the need for accessible resources and accessible equipment, playgrounds, whatever it is in this town. I think we've come a long, long way in the past year, and I think at least for this year, coming into the winter, this playground kind of shows where this community's at and how everyone has stepped up. So I just wanted to give a shout out and thank everyone who was involved.
Mr. Gale, thank you very much, and it's deeply appreciated. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I will turn to announcements. Mr. Pacheco.
Announcements. The Council on Aging Primetime Supportive Adult Day Program is accepting new clients. For more information, please contact Program Manager Trista Tate at 508-669-6272 or email ttate, T-T-A-T-E, at dayton-ma.gov. The Town of Dayton's Food Bank distribution will be held next on October 15th, this coming Saturday, 2022, located at the Town Hall lower level at 979 Somerset Avenue, and that will be at 8 o'clock. The Dayton Historical Society, and I need to note that I'm a member of the Dayton Historical Society. I don't get paid, I don't have a salary. I'm an officer, but I don't have a salary. The Dayton Historical Society presents King Philip's Indian War. Author Michael Tugas will give a slide presentation on the war between the colonists and the Native Americans in 1675-1676 on Thursday, October 20th, 2022 at 6:30 at the Friendship Hall, 2056 Elm Street, Dayton. The Town of Dayton will be holding a COVID-19 vaccine booster flu clinic at their Primetime Council on Aging building, 1059 Somerset Avenue on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022 from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Call the Board of Health to book an appointment at 774-872-0943. And you can also go online on our website now and actually book your appointment if you wish. That's what I did. The West Dayton Church is celebrating their 250th anniversary on Saturday, October 22nd, from 2 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. They will be having a fall family old-time fair located at 2767 Horton Street in North Dayton. Bristol County Agricultural High School presents their 85th fall show from October 22nd to October 23rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. to include student exhibits and displays, live music, campus fun for kids, prospective student tours, and etc. On Saturday, October 29, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, will coordinate with the Dayton Police Department for a one-day collaborative prescription drug take-back initiative event to remove potentially dangerous controlled substances from homes. The Children's Library is hosting a preschool Halloween party on October 31st from 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. There will be fun games, prizes for costumes, and trick-or-treating in Town Hall. Drop-in registration not required. That's it for announcements, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is Community Spotlight, Dayton Cultural Council. Mr. Mullen?
Yes, I believe we have some folks from the Cultural Council here with us, Mr. Chairman. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Tara Schaefer, 1730 Wellington Street, and I am the chair this year of the Dayton Cultural Council. I understand you'd like to know a little bit about it.
Yes, absolutely.
So I will tell you what I know. This is my second year helping out the council. So we are funded from the Massachusetts Cultural Council. We support enrichment to all residents of Dayton, and the purpose is just to strengthen and promote and maintain the local culture and community in Dayton. We meet once a year to go over any applicants that would like to have funding. So we have a Facebook page and we have an Instagram page, which we try and post like all the news that we get from Mass Cultural Council. We make sure when we review that there's a range of interests. We don't look for, we want to make sure we're covering everybody in Dayton. And we, when we do look at giving money, it does vary from year to year, depending on how much money we get. That varies, and then who applies. So that could change from year to year. Right now, applicants who are interested in receiving money need to complete their application by October 15th. It's online only. We are meeting the beginning of November, and then we'll notify anybody who does not get the money November 21st, and then everybody who has the final approvals will notify by January 15th. I will tell you a few of the places that we funded for this year that we're in right now is Prime Time. We did Ed the Wizard Alchemy Laboratory by Dayton Library. Dayton Historical Society received some money, the Rehoboth Minuteman Corps, DR Marching Band, DR Public Schools, and Dayton Parks and Recreation.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm quite familiar with the program. I'm very happy and pleased that we have such a program in town. And we get emails all the time from you guys and from Mass Cultural Council.
How much money is usually allocated for Dayton?
So it's really changed from year to year. I can tell you this next year, fiscal year 2023, we have $7,300.
Where does, I know the money comes from the state, but what is the part of the budget? Does it just come right out of Mass Cultural? Is it from lottery money?
I actually don't know the full answer to that, but I don't think it's lottery money. I think because they have other grants that they give, so by the way that they run, I'm assuming it's right from the Massachusetts Cultural Council.
And the awarding of money is limited to what type of groups?
So the group basically has to provide some sort of arts, environmental, educational projects. They have to bring organizations together for cultural reasons. They can do different different types of studies, exhibition, performances, any of those cultural activities.
And the deadline, is it usually pretty much?
This is always the same. It's always October 15th. You can only apply online, and then those dates don't change.
Okay. Next year, prior to, like the beginning of October, could you send a notice, an announcement, like Mr. Pacheco just read? So we
For
can
here?
read it out to the public in
Yeah.
general?
Yep, I
'Cause
sure can.
You relied on your website to get the word out, Facebook?
Yeah, and that's new this year. Before, I don't think it was, I'm not sure
Okay.
how the word was gotten out prior to that, but So this is sort of new for this year.
It doesn't, I mean, it could just be,
Yeah, we can definitely email you and let you know, sure,
like a flyer, something similar like
Yep.
this. Real
absolutely.
fancy. So, thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank
Thank
you.
you.
This was very, I have received a lot of questions about the council, what they did they actually run events?
No.
And then my experience from Taunton was, the handling the distribution of funds from
Yes,
the
that's it.
past council. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Town administrators report.
Yes.
And town account.
Yes, I can thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a very busy few months, as we know. And one of the things that we also encountered, we had to deal with a transition in the position of town accountant. And so, like, we do have our new town accountant. We do have our new town accountant, Serena Amaral, here with us. And one of the first things that she had to really do and dive into, really upon starting here, is to help and to actually close out the fiscal year 22. So, yeah, we do have Ms. Amaral here with us this evening to talk about the FY22 closeout, because from the FY22 closeout with the Department of Revenue comes the certification of free cash, which is like an annual process, and I really want to thank Serena for all her efforts. She, in working to have our free cash certified, it has been the quickest in 3 years. That we've actually submitted and have had certified our free cash. So, so despite their transitions, we haven't missed a beat, and that's so they're all really, in my opinion, due to, hiring of someone. Hiring someone like Serena. So she's going to give an overview of our FY23 free cash certification. We really want to make sure everyone really understands how we really got here, to answer any questions about the process. Serena.
Hi, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm glad that I was able to get it done, and hearing that it was sooner than my predecessors is great information. I was stressing about it a little bit, especially knowing that November 1st, you guys typically do the special town meeting. So I was very pleased with that. I've met with Mr. Mullen, and we've put together this little quick presentation just for a quick explanation. As I've said in the past, this is my first time closing the books and having free cash certified. So there was a couple of quirks that I had to learn, and to learn how Dayton goes about their budgeting and their revenue sources along the way. So we can start with the prior year's free cash. So last year it came in at 1.7 million, which is really good for such a small town. I was actually a little surprised that you guys have been averaging pretty well. It looks like in 2020 there was a little bit of a dip, but overall you guys are around the 1.7-ish. So that is accounted to free cash having one-time COVID freeze spendings, where departments were limited on what they could spend, because we were really unsure at that time how COVID was going to affect revenues coming in, especially with businesses being closed and people were really just staying home and not out spending money or doing anything extra. You guys also did an extra reliance on high extended local revenues for your operating budget, which is great. You guys have a lot of local revenues that come in annually that will, sustain going forward. And then the DOR did outline this past June that moving forward, the levels will be a little bit more limited, which also came out in the financial management review. So we're going to keep an eye on that and try to do our best. So the free cash certification for this year came out at 2.9 million. A big chunk of that is 1.2 million that you were expecting from the school excess and deficiency. So that came in right at the end of the fiscal year in June. And that was just over and above additional revenue that, was not accounted for. So once we back that out, it does bring us to the average of the 1.7 that typically Dayton has seen the past few years. Even though fiscal year 21 and 22, you had very different budgeting processes, in the end, it still came out to a similar closed position with about the 1.7 in free cash. And then the revenue impacts on free cash. As you guys can read, I'm sure, the revenue projection process mirrored the FY21 trends and what was actually coming in for revenue. So we adjusted the revenue estimates to be more in line with what the town was actually receiving. And then staying a little more conservative on the revenue projections definitely gave some excess in revenues over and above what was estimated. So I just pulled a few of the bigger examples. There's many that were overage, but about 300,000 was straight from excise tax, which, as the chief was saying earlier, supply issues with automotives and chips and parts that, we were still able to bring in 300 over what was estimated. And then 186,000 for one-time penalties and interest payments. 75,000 was left over from the previous year's free cash, so that automatically gets rolled back in. 25,000 came from the Cannabis One Connection facility, which was not, estimated as a revenue at that time. So when that 25 came in, it was just an additional little boost. 44,000 is miscellaneous revenues, and then 56,000, it was over and above the cherry sheet revenues. And the cherry sheets at the time of budgeting are not finalized at that moment. They go through the different legislative branches, and there's always a chance, for the assessments to go up, the revenue to go up, to go down. So we kind of see the trend and we make an estimate, and then by the time it gets to the end, they were over and above what they estimated on their revenues. And then the other side of that is the expenses. So at the end of the fiscal year, we had about 700,000 that was approved and appropriated, but not spent. So 228,000 of that came directly from the sewer and went right back into, the sewer retained earnings, as they are an enterprise fund, so it's separate from the general fund. And then of that, 100,000 were funds that became encumbered into fiscal year 23. And that's just basically orders that we had out there that we hadn't quite invoiced for yet, so we just carried the money into the following year. And then there were annual town meeting articles and special town meeting articles that were, that project was complete, but there was still a little bit of extra money, so all of those were just turned back. And then there was one in particular with Dayton Elementary School and the middle school that was closed out, so that increased. 155,000 for health insurance. 61,000 is veterans benefits that were not paid out. And then an additional 50,000 through the police department. They had some promotions and just positional moves and additional positions that weren't backfilled, so the expense just never quite happened in that year. So that's basically the quick little rundown. If there's any questions?
Mr. Chico?
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. That 1.2 and change that we got from E&D from the school is probably because of the pandemic, that they didn't spend all the monies that they were appropriated, so they're returning some of that money to us.
Yes.
So we don't normally get $2.9 million
No.
in free cash. And I want the residents to understand that we're very cautious with our monies. And this free cash is monies that we didn't need to spend. There were taxes for it, and revenues that we received. As I learned from Mrs. Goulart, the revenues is a big part of free cash. And this is money that, fortunately, that the town didn't have to spend, and now we have that opportunity to use it appropriately at the special town meeting and possibly at the annual town meeting next year. So we don't normally get this height. I've been on the board, I think the highest maybe is 1.8, so we're close to that. It was 1.2 or one of those years. So I want the residents to understand that we don't normally have 2.9. Other towns have had a lot higher than what we have, which is not good. I don't see that as a good thing. So I think the town is in a good position. It's been fiscally responsible.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. That 1.2 million, that was definitely a good decision to, leave it as, in excess when it comes, when we actually receive the money. Now we can disperse it
Yeah.
instead of, we might get it, we might not. And yeah, that's definitely like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Even in Rockland, we never really
Yeah.
saw that. So that was definitely good
Yeah.
financial planning
Yes,
on your part going into that fiscal year. Absolutely.
thank you.
Sierra, I want to thank you for a wonderful start.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate
do
that.
have a question,
Okay.
and I've met with Mr. Mullen, and we've had some discussions in regards to that windfall, if you will, of $1.2 million. And Mr. Mullen, could you elaborate on a potential
Yes.
use of that money, that 1.2 million?
So yeah, tomorrow evening the board together with the FinCom will be meeting jointly to make recommendations for the November 1st special town meeting. And included in those recommendations, I'm just actually gonna fast forward in the packet just a little bit, but included in those recommendations tomorrow night will be recommendations where we do in terms of our available free cash, we will be proposing to reserve about $800,000 of that in stabilization alone. And then actually another $90,000 in OPEB. So yeah, we want to be really strategic. We don't want to be viewing this as a windfall to go out and spend by any means. In a lot of the real strategic recommendations that we're going to be will rely on actually making pretty respectable contributions into our general stabilization fund, and also into our capital stabilization fund to fund the capital needs we have as a town. But in addition to that, in Article 3, we have a very important priority every year to fund the police station debt service, which was actually approved by the town as a debt exclusion. But the town has always worked extremely hard to make sure that the town and the town officials and the board and the FinCom does everything that we can, if we have the ability, to prevent the cost of that debt service from actually hitting the tax rate. So the debt service for the police station, which in FY23 is in the amount of $367,000, when the debt to service payment for the PD started, it was actually a cost to the tune of around, I want to say $425,000. But in the past 5 or so years that we have had an obligation to pay the debt on the PD, based on the very taxpayer-oriented, in really fiscally responsible minds, of the Selectmen and the FinCom, there has been a really strong priority to never let the cost of that hit the tax rate. And over the last 5 years, it hasn't. So in Article 3, what we're proposing to do is actually fund the cost of the FY23 debt service in the amount of $367,000. $67,000. But in addition to that, to actually appropriate another $230,000 to to in essence brings the town's really contribution to lower the tax rate, actually down by a net of $600,000, which is actually pretty significant, and we do have the ability to do that. And we also understand, as we all do, in our residents, in our residents especially, we do really understand the pressures, on everyone, whether it's energy, whether it's a whole host of issues, the cost, the pressures, the financial pressures is on our residents. So we have really prioritized, as we look to make recommendations with our free cash, we prioritize the ability to be able to do that from the beginning, and that's what we'll be presenting to the board and to the FinCom tomorrow night.
Now, because you're paying additional money on the bond, will that reduce the time frame to pay it?
No, so I just want to be clear on that. That's a really good question, but the word "and" after the words "a police station" mean, so actually there are two separate things being actually combined into one. So, but at the end of the day, for the purposes on our tax recap, what it actually does is it all does the same thing.
Thank you very much. Very, very exciting news here.
So just for clarification, then, we're taking a $200,000+.
Yes.
That's going off the principal.
We're making the regular bond payment.
Yes,
Right.
thank you.
Yep,
Yes.
so the actual bond payment is $367,295. So we'll make the bond payment, and then an additional $230 will go to reduce the tax rate.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear, so that additional $230,000, we're not actually using to apply to the bond or the interest. We're applying it to the tax rate itself.
Yes,
So it's a
separate.
savings of about $600,000?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Serena.
Mr. Mullen, thank you for your efforts with this too. That's significant savings for the town. Next, old business. Review, discuss, and act, third reading of the proposed junk dealer licensing guidelines. Mr. Mullen.
Yes, so you do, the board does have for its consideration actually a third, a third version based on significant input that we've been receiving. It does have a third version of the proposed junkyard licensing guidelines before them for consideration. This process we do have a very active a very active group of class 3 licensees in town. And those licensees have reached out to us to further discuss the scope and the applicability of the junk licensing guidelines. And you'll notice in the most updated version, I'm just actually getting my act together here, I apologize, that one of the changes based on the input from the class 3 license holders would actually come under purpose in the last sentence of the first paragraph that would stipulate that said guidance is not required for a holder of a motor vehicle dealer's license regardless of class, issues issued in accordance with Chapter 140, Section 58 of the Massachusetts General Laws. The Class 3 license holders in particular, they are basically licensed by Section 58 of 140 to do the work that they do relating to junk cars. So what we would be proposing this evening, is that the Class 3 license in their case, but also Class 1 and 2 licenses, a holder of Class 1, 2, or 3 licenses, by essence or by virtue, of a dealer holding a license, they would not have to apply for an additional junk dealer license. And so we did want to clarify that. Also, we, based on the input, we actually, there's also a statute in Chapter 140 as well. We originally were proposing that the licensing, that the time of license would run from January 1st to December 31st. But there's actually a section, I think it's section 230 of Chapter 140, that actually does require the licensing process to run from May 1st to April 30th of each year. So we did make that change on the second page accordingly, Mr. Chairman.
And we will have to change our dates of license and approvals that we traditionally do as a result of this. Mr. Pacheco, any questions?
I have no questions, nope.
I don't have any questions, but there are someone I want to thank. We had 3 reviews of this proposal, and we elicited public input on this. And Borges Auto Sales, the family, came forward and was a huge help in helping us differentiate between Chapter 140 and its regulations in regards to auto facilities and the regular, typical junk dealer that some of us may remember from previous times. There aren't many junk dealers in town. My understanding, there are only 3 auto recycling businesses in town, so there are not a lot of groups that are involved. However, it's very important for the neighbors and the communities where these facilities are that there be regulations, and Mr. Aguirre is the enforcement officer in 99% of the issues that may arise. So I really want to thank Mr. Borges and his 2 sons for their input on this. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to accept the proposed junk dealer licensing guidelines as set forth.
I so move.
I will step down as chair to second the motion. Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. The motion passes. Just so the public knows, there was a bylaw created many years ago that stated that it would be subject to the policies of the Board of Selectmen, and those policies were never really completed. So as a result, it was impossible for Mr. Aguirre to enforce a policy that didn't exist. So I want to thank Mr. Mullen and Mr. Aguirre, Ms. Brady, thank you for all you do for helping put this together. It was long overdue. Thank you. Selectmen's report. Mr. Pacheco?
I have no reports.
I just have one quick announcement. It came from last night at the school committee meeting. And it's quite an honor for the town. The faculty and students of Dayton Elementary and Dayton Middle School. Both were named Feinstein Schools of Excellence. There's some really good things going on in the Dayton-Rehoboth Regional School District right now, and both sides, Rehoboth and Dayton, are working closely together, and much is being accomplished. It's really good. I especially like to thank Mr. Baxter and Mr. Rooney for really getting the ship sailing in a very positive direction. Thank you. New business. Review, discuss, and act on municipal light plant contract to install fiber for town of Dayton municipal buildings.
That is not ready, Mr. Chairman, so I recommend that it be tabled.
Tape.
I'll make a motion to table agenda item 11A.
I will step down and second that motion. Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Next on the agenda, review and discuss and act on the warrant for 2022 state election.
We do have the proposed warrant, Mr. Chairman, and Selectman Pacheco from the town clerk, which would be the warrant for the November 8th, 2022 general state election. And that has been proposed accordingly by the town clerk.
Now, all we're doing tonight is approving the wording, is that, goes that? or that-
Yeah, like approving the, yes, the warrant, that has the offices, but also in addition, to the candidates for the respective offices, the proposed ballot questions as well, that have been certified, to appear on the ballot by the Secretary of the Commonwealth.
Just so the public understands, we're trying to streamline the budget process this year. And with that being said, we'll be holding joint meetings with FinCom, rather than we meet, then they meet, then we meet. So, at this time,
So just as a clarification, Mr. Chairman, this warrant, is a warrant for the November 8th state general election ballot. Not the warrant for the special town meeting.
oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that, I'm sorry for
not
the
for the
record.
special town meeting,
No, it's for the November 8th
8th ballot.
general election.
Thank you. So all we have to do is approve do we have to approve the wording, or just approve to place it on the ballot?
So yeah, you have to,
Sorry about that.
what I recommend is approving the warrant, so the warrant can be posted in accordance with the law.
I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the warrant for the 2022 state election.
I will second that motion.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Next on the agenda, is the request to appoint Ron Smith to the Historical Commission.
If I can just add that on September 13th, the Historical Commission interviewed Mr. Smith and recommended to the board that he become a member of the Historical Commission.
This appointment will fill one of two vacancies on the commission. Mr. Pacheco, you serve on this commission. Do they have any other applicants?
Not at this time.
So there will
Still be one vacancy.
one vacancy. I will entertain a motion to appoint Ronald C. Smith to the Dayton Historical Commission.
I so move.
Chairman Hull will step down to second it. Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. I inadvertently skipped over under old business, the update on the special town meeting warrant. I was wondering, in regards to these articles,
Yes.
is it necessary for us to give a recommendation tonight? Or is that something we were going to do tomorrow night with FinCom?
So yeah, my recommendation is that, my recommendation is that both sets of recommendations can come tomorrow night with FinCom. The board will have, the board as a board of selectmen, will have to vote first in the joint meeting, like on which articles that they would wish to place on the warrant itself. Then from that, so then there would be separate recommendations in the joint meeting that would come from the selectmen and the FinCom on the proposed articles that are going to be on the warrant, Mr. Chairman.
And at the last meeting, we voted to accept them as they were written, correct?
There was that discussion, but then it was backed off. So we could do all the recommendations all at once in one night.
One night.
And and all the recommendations that will be made tomorrow night will be done in time for us to post the warrant on Monday, based on the requirements of the town's general bylaws.
Now, currently, there are 25 articles.
Yes,
And with that being said, some of the articles could be eliminated.
they could, yes, sir. Yes. And like a few things, there are a few articles that do remain a work in progress. And I just want to mention Article 4, relating to the Dayton dispatches. We're hoping to have some information that will allow us to complete that article by tomorrow night's meeting. So that is one article. I also want to draw the board's attention to Article 22. We're working with the assessing office. And I want to thank Ms. Brady for her work with the assessing office today. And in particular, I want to thank Lisa Tatro from the assessing department. There may need to be clarifications to Article 22, which we will have ready for recommendation tomorrow night as well. And Article 22 deals with the local property tax exemptions for surviving spouses of veterans and blind persons. So we'll have that proposed article clarified before tomorrow night. And that's all I have as an update right now.
Thank you very much, and again, I apologize for skipping over that. With that being said, could we return to new business? Review, discuss, and act to rescind the field driver appointments of Nancy Goulart, Eric Easterday, and William Moore. Mr. Pacheco?
I'll make that motion.
Well, okay.
I'll make the motion.
I will second that motion. Before we vote, just a little clarification so the public understands. The position of field driver was created many, many, many years ago, long before the town of Dayton had an animal control officer. The animal control officer is regulated by state law, and as a result, the duties and responsibilities of the field driver were duplicated by the animal control officer. And since the animal control officer, one, is governed by statute, and two, is trained in the field of dealing with animals, it is no longer necessary that the position of field driver exist in the town. With that being said, we will be dissolving the position by rescinding the appointments. That is no reflection of the service of Nancy Goulart, Eric Easterday, and William Moore. We thank them for all their efforts over the past year. Mrs. Goulart, question. In recent time, when I say in the last 3 years, has the field drivers ever been asked to respond to a complaint or concern?
As a matter of fact, Mr. Moore, who's a field driver, had mentioned he had seen something on Facebook, and I think it was pigs that were loose, and he thought we should respond, and I said, I'm not chasing critters. That's the animal control officer. To the best of my knowledge, as a matter of fact, going back to the establishment of an animal control officer, it was when I returned to the board, I think no, it was when I was on the board the first time. We had a dog officer, and the person that held that position was not a resident, and quite frankly, she picked and chose what she would respond to. And after a few refusals to come out for sick cats and things like that, that's when I said to the board, we were also the Board of Health at that time, it's time we got a full animal control officer who does any kind of animal and does the entire job. So that's when we instituted an animal control officer. To the best of my knowledge, field drivers, it probably goes back to the 1800s, simply because of the, we have lesser animals now, meaning herds and things like that. So I think probably it might have been the late 1800s or early 1900s when someone might have been involved with field driving. So no, to the best of my knowledge, no. And as I said, I don't chase critters.
Thank you very much. Next.
We need to
Would you
take a vote on that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye.
Just to clarify, Mrs. Goulart, would you reconsider that? Because you do get paid $5 a day to chase the critters, so I'm not sure if you'd be interested.
Oh, is it going to be retroactive?
So that's a per diem rate, a per incident rate.
Yes.
Per diem, actually,
Yeah.
in the law.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Mr. Moore found that. So we haven't spent the money.
Review, discuss, and act to change the name of the community garden to the James Briggs Garden.
Yeah, so the Agricultural Commission on September 20th voted to change the community garden to the James Briggs Garden, which some of us have been calling that for a couple of years now, so this is now before us.
I have had, prior to this recommendation, several citizens who have come to me and asked if it would ever be considered. So I'm very thankful that it is coming up this evening. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to change the name of the community garden to the James Briggs Garden.
I so move.
I'll step down as chair to second that motion. Mr. Chico?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is also an aye. Review, discuss, and act the contract for the professional engineering services at Tremont Street, the landfill and transfer station. It's the Green Seal Environmental LLC, 114 State Road, Sagamore Beach, Mass. 02562. Mr. Mullen, regarding this contract,
Yes.
who negotiated it?
We actually so we work regularly with with engineering entities based on the DEP monitoring requirements for the Tremont Street landfill. So this is something we have to do every year, like on an annual basis. And so we reach out to Green Seal Environmental. I can ask them to provide a quote to continue doing the work that they're already doing. So this would be a continuation of the relationship we currently have with Green Seal. Like in like a 3-year contract we would enter into with Green Seal at a cost of $12,075 each year, which we do have budgeted in this year's FY23 budget. I do recommend approval. We have a very good relationship and a track record with Green Seal.
And it'll be $12,075 each of the 3 years?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, did the Board of Health, since the transfer station's under their control, did they review this
Yes.
contract? And
Yes.
Did they have a
do recommend it
recommendation?
as well? Yes.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the 3-year contract with Green Seal Environmental for the sum of $12,075 a year.
I so move.
I will second the motion. Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is also an aye. Acknowledgements. No, I do have one. Mr. Gales, you go first. Mr. Gale?
So I think Jonathan might have kept his hand up the whole time. I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
Okay. Probably so.
He might have tuned us out by now.
Okay. I would like to thank, with deep appreciation, the efforts of Susan Cody, Rachel Goulart, and Kevin Smith for the wonderful job that they did in helping to organize the efforts of so many other people to make the North Dayton Playground a very beautiful place. Sunday was a very wonderful day, and weather-wise, and for the people of the town of Dayton. There were many people who turned out for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, and again, to the Park and Rec, who I might add, do this job at no pay. Thank you for all of your efforts.
Can I just add to that then? Also, as to what you said, the 3 of them, the previous Sunday had worked hard, as well as many residents, including Dave Rosa was there working hard, did a lot of the physical work for this project. And Susan used the compactor, Dave Rosa used the compactor, but all of them, Rachel and Kevin, moved the mulch and did a lot of work to make it presentable for this past Sunday. So I want to thank the residents as well as the Park and Recreation Committee for the actual work that they did on this project. So thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Correspondence? Minutes? Approval of the Board of Selectmen regular meeting minutes of September 28th, 2022.
I so move.
I will second the motion. Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Approval of the warrants.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the warrants of October 5th, 2022. 14A-23, $128,563.29, and 14B-23, $132,518.90.
I will second the motion. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the warrants for October 12th, 2022, in the amounts of 15A-23, $113,434.65, and 15B-23, $298,107.84.
I will second that motion. Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Public input. Any additional public input? With that being said, we will be entering into executive session and we will not be returning. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares. To discuss the Dayton Town Clerical Library and Council on Aging Union Laborers Local 272, and also discuss the Dayton Dispatchers Union. Approval of the Board of and also approval of the Board of Selectmen Executive Session Meeting Minutes of September 28th, 2022.
I so move.
I will second the motion. Mr. Jaco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Thank you, and have a good evening.